Alrighty everyone, welcome back. We are now halfway through the month of October. It is the 15th, and the Walt Disney Company is in full-blown panic mode right now over various divisions over at the company. One of the biggest ones of all, having to do a lot with the drama going on between Bob Iger, the Disney executives, the board, is of course Lucasfilm. Now we know that Lucasfilm has a lot of alarms going on right now, a lot of scenarios where they are going into full-fledged damage control mode in a desperate move to save the image of this company, of this studio, if you will, after all of the Star Wars disasters that took place over the past couple of years, especially the Acolyte just this past June. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So one very interesting thing about this situation has a lot more to do with the fact that we have a lot of actresses, a lot of actors, those like Bob Iger as well, the Disney CEO, beginning to hop on board to protect their overall agenda, if you will, and to twist the words around to make it like they are not engaged in any kind of ideology when it comes down to Star Wars. Now, this is where things begin to go out of control, because we already know that there is a lot of those out there, like Leslye Headland, Amandla Stenberg, and Jodie Turner-Smith, who we will be focusing on today yet again, who continues to defend the Acolyte and the Star Wars agenda at all costs like no tomorrow. Let's dive into this, shall we? Now, one thing about Jodie Turner-Smith, you guys may or may not know her, she played Mother Anastasia, one of the witches in this actual series, a abysmal character at that, and terribly written, by the way. But with Lucasfilm still considered the worst division at the Disney company, already those associated with the studio are on damage control mode in a last-ditch effort to change people's minds about Disney's agenda with Star Wars. Now, Jodie Turner-Smith of the Acolyte series recently dropped the following. Look, as an actress, the most important thing that you can do is to stand up for what's right, and what I feel is right is to address toxic masculinity in fandom culture, especially in Star Wars fandom culture, that we all witnessed before our very own eyes with the response that we got with the Acolyte. I am and have been going through mixed emotions. I am both frustrated and saddened that studios tend to listen to these very same fans that really aren't the majority of the customers that support a brand as large as Star Wars. What both Leslye and Kathy did with the Acolyte and the opportunity they gave me was the time of my life. And to watch people tear apart a show because it stars women, especially those that come from the LGBTQ community, is absolutely offensive. But we aren't just seeing this type of response at the Acolyte, we are seeing it in the books too, that attempt to properly represent LGBTQ in a more direct way rather than a vague way, as Disney did so in the past with their films. And I think this is the right step in the direction. And of course, you will always have toxic males, and even some toxic women that take their side, that remain opposed to what we believe should be the norm in Star Wars. So guys, let me say one thing about Jodie Turner-Smith. Now, what's interesting about Jodie Turner-Smith, you guys may or may not know this, but she did actually have a lot of issues with the fandom response of the Acolyte early on. You guys may remember that when she was promoting this series, before it even dropped, she was going on about how this addresses the patriarchy, and how this actually addresses sexism, or as Leslye Headland likes to call it, benign sexism, whatever she wants to call it. But at the same exact time, we know that Jodie Turner-Smith is just as insane as Amandla Stenberg, as Leslye Headland, and among others that actually really defend this show as if it's something of a masterpiece, right? Now, we already know that Kathleen Kennedy is getting a lot of flack with the Acolyte series and the Star Wars sales disaster. More about that later, by the way. And a lot of board members, I should say, are beginning to turn on Kathleen Kennedy. They're beginning to question her validity as a leader, as a president of a major studio like Lucasfilm HQ. So this is where things begin to get quite wild. She goes on to continue, I just think it's a rebellious act, to be quite frank. She's talking about the backlash. A rebellious act by immature adults that don't understand the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's the most important thing in this world and in this industry, and to see studios fall into the demands of these same loud individuals sort of sets us back to what we have been trying to establish. I just think everyone needs to understand that there is a silent majority of fans to almost anything that is rejected in fandom culture. And so I ask all of those silent fans to please share your voice and your love for things like the acolyte and LGBTQ representation, whether it's in books, film, or TV. We need to stand up for what's right, whether it's against the public or the studios. This industry needs change. It's 2024 after all, and all of this is long overdue. We have to make up for lost time. Star Wars is an open book for many possibilities, where you can basically do whatever you want in these stories and where these characters come from. It's very important that we speak up for ourselves and let us be heard to the world. But yeah, I just think that we are living in the worst time ever, and we are about to potentially have an even more divided year in 2025. It's just so unnecessary. Toxicity doesn't belong in a fandom as big as Star Wars. And though they are the minority, they are very loud and can appear to be larger than they are on social media and other places as well. So obviously she's having a meltdown. She can't grasp reality, that this is exactly what's going on, that it is the majority. Most fans reject the acolyte. They also reject the Star Wars agenda, if you will. Everything that they are shoehorning into books, video games, movies, and just everything, even in the theme parks, it's everywhere. It's not just Star Wars, it is in almost every brand that Disney owns. But looking at Star Wars in isolation, it is the worst when it comes down to Disney. It gets the most agenda-driven garbage by Bob Iger, by Kathleen Kennedy, by others out there that are really trying to turn George Lucas's vision upside down. To which, honestly, guys, they already established that. They already turned it upside down. They already hit rock bottom. At this point, you know, the only way you can go further down is to go through bedrock. I mean, that's how bad Star Wars is about to become if they get that Rey Skywalker movie made, which, by the way, it is on hold. It's not really moving forward now as a response to the Acolyte and the Acolyte sales disaster, because all the merchandise was canceled for that show. So again, I mean, like I said, Jodie Turner-Smith, no different than Amanda Stenberg, no different than Leslye Headland, the showrunner of the series, and absolutely no different than Kathleen Kennedy. They are all pretty much on an even scale when it comes down to their beliefs, how they see the fans, how they see fandom culture, quote-unquote, as toxic. And this is just all the repeated nonsense. They all parrot each other, right? This is just typical Lucasfilm behavior. This is how a lot of those hired at Lucasfilm tend to act. I mean, we all remember Freddie Prinze Jr. laughing about Gina Carano getting fired on Twitter. We all remember that. These are the types of people that Kathleen Kennedy, in particular, hires. She hired Leslye Headland, the former personal assistant of Harvey Weinstein, after all, fully knowing where she came from. But overall, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about Turner-Smith and her overall view of the Star Wars agenda getting rejected on a massive scale by the public. And, you know, if you guys did enjoy the content for today, let me know what you guys have to say about everything related to this company, and I will catch you guys later. Let me know what you guys have to say also about Bob Iger and everyone else at Disney.